What's going on, everyone? It's Bryce, back with another video today, and I'm going to be going into my experience with stopping smoking weed for 3 weeks. Today is the 3-week mark of a 10-year journey with our relationship with marijuana, and why I was smoking, how it made me feel, the pros and the cons, and how I feel now not having smoked, and what made me actually decide to stop smoking. Stay tuned. So before I get into like why I decided to stop, the pros and the cons and all that stuff, I want to just give a little context as to what my relationship was like with marijuana, so that you guys can kind of sympathize, or at least have some context, and maybe like compare that to your situation and see if it fits. So I started smoking about 10 years ago when I was 16. It started off to just be something I used like every, blue moon with friends, and it was like a fun thing to do. You just laugh, giggle, and eat. But over time, I started to use it a lot more than just socially. And it got to the point, like after the first maybe 3 years, where I was starting to make money so I could actually afford to continue the habit and use it habitually and more frequently. And what was happening was I started to use it because it was one of those things where when you use it, it gives you instant gratification. It gives you exactly what you think it's going to give you right away. So there's not really like a delay where, like working out, it's like when you work out, you have to wait to see the results. With weed, you smoke it and you're high in the next 15 minutes, or right away or whatever. So for me, it was something that I started to use more or less to like maintain like my emotions, not to really feel as much. And it really started to get to the point where I used it for everything. For the longest time, I was like, I had the understanding in my mind the weed wasn't helping me, and I fought with this idea for a long time, and I tried to like logically justify it, like, oh, it never killed anyone, and I can afford to pay for it, and I whatever, like I just would make these logical justifications to continue to use it. And the people around me were using it as well, so there wasn't anyone who was really like motivating me or inspiring me, or even like really showing me that not smoking was the better way to be. So I continued to kind of fight with that thought for a while, but I always had the back of my mind, like, if I just make the decision to not smoke, it's that easy, and I can just stop any day I want to stop. After a while, it stopped being like that. I stopped believing as much in myself that I could stop when I wanted to stop. And that's when I started to realize, like, man, this is a problem. I used to be smoking any type of gadget, anything that like you could smoke weed out of. If it was a joint, a bong, a blunt, a dab pen, anything, you name it, I did it. And like I said, it was just something that I used all the time. So then I stopped really addressing the problems that I had in my life, kind of postponing my responsibilities, and feeling like crap about myself because I wasn't keeping the promises to myself that I knew I should be keeping. Just like the baseline responsibilities, let alone trying to grow and be better. So I would say for the past, like, I don't know, 7 years or so, I've been telling myself constantly, like, this isn't for you. But I just continued to do it, and it never really like showed up physically debilitating. So it was just something that I could continue doing, and I'll say, oh, it's not really affecting me, like, I'll just do it, I'll stop later, like when it's the right time. There's no right time. The right time to stop is right now, if you're feeling like it's not helping you, because you other people might like be in your circle, be smoking as well, and they don't see the harm in it because they're in that fog as well. So why I decided to stop smoking. I decided to stop smoking because I realized how selfish I was being. I realized when I smoked, I literally had to like be inside to smoke because of the amount of anxiety that I would have when I smoked. And then I realized like I couldn't leave, I couldn't drive, I couldn't do nothing for the first like hour or two, or else I would have this panic and I would have this anxiety, and it was such a like a gripping fear that like I was gonna lose control of my emotions and I was gonna freak out. And I don't know why I like had that. Actually, I do. I had like a bad experience with some stuff that wasn't, it was like synthetic weed and it was terrible. But ever since then, it made me feel as though like I was going to have that experience again. So realizing how selfish I was being, because if my family needed me or anybody needed me and I was smoking, which I was always smoking, I was never available. So what that meant for me was I was choosing to stay in a constant state of intoxication and smoking, and that was more important than being available for the people who need me. And that is not something that I'm willing to continue to do. I feel like crap having lived like that, and lucky enough that it's never really been like a serious issue where someone needed me and I couldn't like go help. But there's just been times where like maybe there was something that I had to do and I just like couldn't go out because I was anxious, and I started making excuses. I started making excuses for like, leaving work early and wanting to go and smoke, and instead of going to do things that would socially be more fulfilling, right? Going to hang out with friends and going to spend time outside of the house, I became a hermit and I became very isolated and just continued to smoke as much as I could and justify it logically, and then hate myself for continuing to do something that I knew was like making me anxious, making me feel selfish, having me procrastinate on my responsibilities. And it was just this cycle of like smoking. Okay, I'm high for a bit, I don't feel anything. It's like the dishes are in the sink, but they're covered up. The dishes don't go away, they're just covered up, And then once the cover comes off them dishes, figuratively, I either have to smoke again or I feel like crap because I know, man, now I got to handle these dishes. But every time I don't handle the dishes and I go smoke, something else comes on now, right? Now I got to, do this exam. Now I got to do the laundry. Now I got to sweep the floors. And I just smoke. And I would postpone all these things until it got to the point where it was too much. Like I had too much stuff to handle. And then I'm like, well, now I got too much stuff to handle. Let me just smoke and not think about it. So it was like really crazy relationship that I had with it. At first it was fun. At the end it was terrible. One of the things that I realized the weed was causing as well was like panic attacks late at night. I would just have these panic attacks late at night sometimes where it's pitch black in my room, and I just get this feeling of like I don't know, like since the room was so dark, maybe it was like I feel like, oh, maybe this is what death is like, or like I'm dying. It sounds irrational, but for me it was like the most horrendous thing to go through, because at that point, like I would jump out of bed and I would like have to run really quick and like feel alive really quickly, like turn on a light or something or go outside. And it was not something that I would wish on anybody. So basically, to wrap that up, it was making me very isolated. It was creating anxiety and angst and fear and hopelessness. I was postponing my responsibilities till everything would add up. Then I would try to do everything at once, and it wasn't a cycle that I could maintain or wanted or was willing to maintain. And it was driving me crazy. My relationships were breaking down. I wasn't helping anyone else. I wasn't even helping myself. I was selfish, and every day I felt like crap. Every day I felt like I'm not who I could be, or I'm not in that journey of being who I could be. I'm just a shell. And that was eating me alive every single day. Okay, so now that we know why I decided to stop smoking, we're gonna go over the pros and the cons to smoking, right? The pros are, for a little bit of time, you can basically go numb, if that's what you want to say. If you're feeling some type, like you have a loss in the family, you get fired from work, you stub your toe, anything that's like creating pain in your life, you can use that to kind of blanket that. But I feel like that's it's like not a good way to handle it, but it works. And some people can use it in moderation, and they don't use it for those things, and they use it maybe just socially, they use it just to go to bed. Things are okay in moderation. But for me, I'm like an all or nothing type of guy. It's like, either I'm smoking this thing when the sun rises till the sun goes down, or it ain't for me. And it's not for me. It's just not. Like, there was no way that I tried to moderate it. I just was not working. Another pro is that it's socially acceptable nowadays, where if you're smoking weed, you could be, out in public smoking. It's like illegal in a lot of states. You can go to the corner stores and pick it up. So it's something that, like, that's one way you can justify it in your mind is, man, it's legal. Everyone else does it. Why can't I would say one other pro that used to be a pro for me, but it changed over time, was I was able to use that to get away from my social anxiety. Like, I could smoke and then I could go hang around a crowd of people, or be in a situation where it was like uncomfortable for me, and that weed would kind of numb me for that moment, that I really didn't have that anxiety anymore, and I could get through it. But once it wore off, it was almost like the initial anxiety that I would have had was like doubled, right? Because now I'm not handling, or I'm not dealing with whatever thing I'm trying to cover up, right? So if it's like my social anxiety, for example, say I'm not smoking, or I'm smoking before school, and then I go to school and I go through the first couple periods, but then once it wears off, I'm like so socially anxious, because I'm not even going and dealing with the social anxiety head on. I'm trying to use something to get me by, and then just try to figure it out for the rest of the time. So the cons to smoking weed. One of the cons is that you're going to consistently be using money on this. I mean, I can't tell you how much money that I've spent on this. And if I would have just invested that money just into like a S&P 500 or something of that nature, or even just into like courses and classes to better like my skill set, oh my God, I would be so much further along now than I am. But I can't like hold on to that and wish that I wouldn't have done that, because having this clarity now is something that I feel like I needed to go to like my lowest point to come out of that and have this clarity, and I would have never reached that without having this situation. So yeah, smoking is going to have you investing into so much to continue to do it. It's going to be, you're getting jars of weed, you're getting papers, blunts, pipes, lighters, everything. There's going to be so much that you're going to invest just financially that's going to set you back. Con number 2 is going to be the amount of time that you do it. Like I was saying, for me, I'm an all or nothing kind of person. So it was something I was more or less scheduling my day around, rather than scheduling my day and then having the weed come in when I could make it work. No, it wasn't that. It was like, how many things can I avoid doing to continue smoking as much as I can today? I'm not saying everyone has that mindset, but if you're being able to like compare your situation to mine and say, yeah, that sounds like something I'm doing, I would give it a hard look and say, you know, really weigh the pros and the cons for yourself and see, is this thing benefiting you more or is it hurting you more? And for me, I realized the benefits of not smoking are good and they're awesome. But what was more compelling for me to make my decision was what happens if I don't stop smoking. Like if I keep doing this and my relationship doesn't change and I'm 10 years older from this point, how does that look? And that was like the scariest thing. And I was like, man, I won't have that. Not like it would be nice not to, or it would be nice to stop or something like that. No, I won't live like that. All right, so we went over money. We went over the time that you use it. The next thing is really going to be the lack of motivation and discipline. For me personally, smoking was something that I just used to avoid everything. So when I was avoiding everything, it didn't give me the opportunity to really make goals for myself. And I'm not trying to put all the accountability on the weed, right? The weed is just the weed. I was the one making the decisions and the thoughts, but now not having smoked for 3 weeks, I can understand, like, man, how much of myself I was giving to this weed, all this energy, numbing all of my emotions, and I never wanted to do anything. Like, I just wanted to stay in the house and smoke. So I wouldn't make goals, because what goals would I do? Because I would rather be in the house smoking, right? Like, my goals were like, what video game could I get? Or like, you know, something silly to where like it was just another process that I could help pass the time rather than enjoy the present moment. Another con is going to be the lack of quality sleep. It's been so crazy because I didn't really realize in the beginning how much sleep that like I wasn't getting. Like, yeah, I was sleeping, but it wasn't that deep quality, restful, regenerative sleep. It was like my body was still working, you know. I don't know how to really explain it, but it was like a surface level sleep. It wasn't anything that would, like, when I would wake up, I would feel like, yeah, like I'm restored and refreshed and ready to go. It just felt like, oh man, it was just like, oh, here we go again. So another con is going to be like your physical health, right? You're going to be coughing a lot. Sometimes, like, when you're not even smoking, depending on the relationship that you have and in your frequency of using it, you will be coughing a lot, and your mental clarity will be shot. Like, I would be in conversations and I would forget what the heck I'm talking about. Like, in the middle of the conversation, I am sitting here talking to you and I just go blank out. It's like, what the hell is wrong with me? You know? That mental fog, once it lifts off and you stop smoking, man, that is one of the most beneficial things. It's just feeling like you're alive and like you're in the moment. You're not just like zombified. It's a great feeling. All right, so why you guys are here? 3 weeks not smoking as of today. How do I feel? I feel fantastic. Seriously, fantastic. The day that I stopped smoking is one of the best days that I can remember for a long time. The amount of energy that I used to use in just maintaining this relationship that was hurting me was unbelievable. It was taking away everything from me. And I realized, what if I just shifted, instead of putting all my time into this substance, what if I put my time into myself? What would happen? I'm sure I would get a lot further along and I would start to appreciate the person that I am rather than just try to hide all of my emotions and get away from my responsibilities. So now, not having smoked for 3 weeks, I'm really feeling that, like, clarity, that self-respect. Like, I'm keeping this promise to myself that I wasn't doing for so long before. And the momentum's always falling in one way. The momentum never just stays still. So if you are doing things that are not in line with the way that you want to be, your momentum's falling backwards. But you can always shift the momentum. You can always shift it. And now that I haven't been smoking, it's just like I'm stacking up these wins every day. It's not the biggest win. And I think that if you try to fight the biggest dragon in the beginning, it's not going to be likely that you're going to be able to deal with him. Just like in a video game, you don't start off by fighting the hardest boss. You start off like fighting something that's relatively small, and you're not as well equipped in the beginning. But as you progress, you start to upgrade your armor, your weapons. Then you're more equipped to fight the bigger dragons, the bigger enemies. And that's just a metaphor, but it's, or analogy, I don't know what word it is, but you should start off by just doing something small that you can do, that you would do, and just do that. Like if it's like, I can just do the dishes today. Okay, then just do the dishes. Like, Jordan Peterson talks about this. It's like, just do what you can do. Don't try to like bite off more than you can chew, because that's not something that you're going to be able to maintain. And then you're going to beat yourself up for not doing that and not keeping that promise to yourself. Just take off little bites. Like if you can wash just one dish, just wash one dish. If you can just look at the dishes, and then the next day grab the dish. And if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. But slowly tell yourself, hey, I'm just going to grab the dish today. And you grab the friggin' dish. And I know this sounds crazy, and some people are like, you can't do the dishes? Man, you would be so surprised at the lack of motivation within yourself once you haven't been keeping these promises to yourself for so long. Like, you need to start small. Another thing that I've realized since I haven't smoked in 3 weeks is my dreams have been off of the hook. Off the hook. Super vivid. Like, almost like I'm not sleeping, because when I wake up, I'm like, holy crap. I've been having the most realistic dreams, and everything is coming back. All of these years of like untapped, unutilized, deep REM sleep are now hitting me, and I'm having these like ultra realistic, and honestly, I've been having some nightmares too. I don't know what that's about, but like, I've never had nightmares in my whole life. Like, I've never had nightmares. I've had a couple nightmares in the past 3 weeks of just like being in these situations where like something is chasing me and I'm hiding from it, and I'm running away from it. And it's, when I wake up, I'm like, holy crap. Like, I'm so glad that was a dream, because like, I thought I was going to die, that's been crazy. But it's not the worst thing, and I'm sure it'll go away, because it's not something that I've ever experienced even before I was smoking weed. I've never had that issue, but I'm sure that it's just like my subconscious and like my fears, plus all of this untapped sleep. It's just kind of like colliding, and I'm having, and they're not all nightmares, right? It's probably 20% or 15%, but it's pretty interesting to see how my brain is when it's sleeping now as compared to like when I was smoking. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give is that if you had like a strong relationship with the weed or with the marijuana, you're going to want to fill your time with something else. A lot of people think that they can just stop smoking and then that'll just be it. But you're going to fall back into your vices if you don't allow yourself to grow into something new. So like, for example, for me, I've been going out and I've been making content, but 2, I've been going out and I've been playing basketball. I've just been going to the park, playing basketball, or going to like a nature walk, and just walking in nature and just enjoying myself. And before, I used to feel like I have to smoke to do these things, or like if I did these things, I would couldn't wait till I get back home so I could smoke. Now it's like, that is the benefit. Walking in nature and being present and really being there is the gift. You know, going and playing basketball and being in the moment and actually like hitting the shots and just feeling like, man, like I'm here. And that, you have to find another way to get your dopamine or your whatever it gives you. I think it's dopamine. You have to find another source, at least one, but I would find a couple that you can do to fill your time, because depending on how much time that you used to use, you know, on smoking, you're gonna have a lot of free time. And that was one thing that smoking took away, was your boredom. If you're bored, just smoke. Oh man, everything's cooler when you smoke. You know, like that's a terrible spot to be in. So to put this all in a nice package with a bow, you know, quitting weed has been the best thing that I could have done for myself at this point. I'm so proud of myself for making that decision, for keeping on. Every day I'm feeling clear. The cravings are basically gone. Like, yeah, I still have cravings at certain times. You know, and something I just want to touch on really quickly is avoid the things that you used to do when you smoke. If you used to watch a certain podcast or a certain TV show, or you used to smoke when you talk to people on the phone or something, try to avoid putting yourself in those scenarios and in those environments that used to have you smoking, right? That you used to link with smoking. So if it's like, man, like every night before bed, I would smoke, like make sure you're telling yourself like the pros and the cons, like, and say like, man, this is why I'm doing this. And if it's like something that you can get away from, right? Because you can't get away from sleeping, but if you can get away from not watching a podcast that you always used to smoke and watch when it came out, or a TV show, or like I said, like talking to people on the phone, whatever your thing was or is, or things were, try to avoid those, right? After a little bit of time, 3 weeks, a month, you can reintroduce those things slowly and show yourself, oh, I can enjoy this without smoking. It's better enjoying it without smoking. But when you first start out, if you're still doing everything that you used to do, you're just not smoking, I hope that you can stop, but I feel like it's very unlikely, because you're still in the same environments, taking on the same, you know, the same schedule and the same rituals. And not smoking is like, man, like maybe you have that initial motivation that like boosts you to stop smoking, but after 2 days, you know, or something, it starts to set in like, man, I'm not getting this. And depending on how much you smoked, your body's going to start asking you for it. Your body's going to say, hey, like, we're ready to feel good again. We're ready to, you know, cover up these emotions that you have been covering up for so long. But the longer that you keep covering up these emotions, the harder it is to quit. You can always quit. You can always start a new life. You can always change your momentum. You can be whoever you want to be. And I really feel like if you just believe in yourself, that it is possible, because it is possible, but you have to believe, and then you have to make the decision. Make the decision to quit. Tell yourself, understand that it's not helping you if you're in that situation. Weigh the pros and the cons. What are the benefits to stop smoking? What are the bad things that are going to happen if you continue to live like this? And ask yourself, is that the way that you want to be? And if it's not, then change it. Because you have to take accountability. Like, I know that this whole video I've been saying like how like the weed has affected me negatively and all these things. But at the end of the day, I have to take accountability for myself and say, I'm the one choosing to smoke this. I'm the one choosing to get up in the middle of the night and smoke this. I'm the one choosing to go home early to go smoke weed. I'm the one choosing to use all my time and energy and be selfish only for me to be intoxicated. That's what I'm doing. So I had to be accountable and say, I need to make better decisions. Now I'm making better decisions. I'm not freaking perfect. I'll never be freaking perfect. But man, do I feel better. And if I can tell anyone anything, it's like being in that mental cloud for so long, you lose life. You're like kind of just coasting through life. You're kind of like a shell of yourself, and you're not present in the moment, and you just miss so much. You miss so much. So I'm glad that I finally kicked it. I'm going to continue kicking it. It's going to continue just being something that I'm not thinking of. I'm not focused on. Every time that I might have a craving that comes in or something, I know, hey, this is going to pass. And I know exactly what it's like when I go back. Like, that's one of the things I always tell myself is like, even if I'm having a craving, I'll just think, what if I go and satisfy this urge right now? How will I feel? I'll feel like crap. I will be starting this whole process over again. I'll be not liking myself. I'll be selfish. I'll be all of these things. And I'm not willing to go back to that. My life is going to be on an upward trajectory, and I'm not going to go back down willingly into that, into that environment, into that ritual again. I'm not saying my life is only going to go up from here, but I'm saying that in this aspect of smoking weed, I will never go back to it. I will never go back to it. All my friends, like, you know, they don't think that I can quit. You know, they don't think that I can quit. They're like, oh, you're always saying that you're going to stop smoking. And yeah, I was fucking not keeping those promises to myself. So then they didn't believe in me. They don't believe in me, right? So I had to show them, like, man, I can do this, and I will do this, and let me show you how much it's bettering my life, and maybe it'll help them better theirs. I'm not the one to make the decision for them, you know, but hopefully at the end of the day, this video helps you guys be able to see what it's like to have such a strong, persistent relationship that just takes away, you know, your energy and your motivation for life. And to see, like, man, I could have this in 3 weeks time. And honestly, I felt better in the first week. I still had like cravings, but like after the first week, I was like, man, like, I think it was like 4 or 5 days in, I just felt like, I was like, I'm happy. Like, I'm happier that I'm not making these decisions to smoke and feed my negative lifestyle. And now that I'm continuing to not smoke, and I'm just not a smoker anymore. Like, I just don't smoke. Like, I just don't even want to do it. But I couldn't imagine myself being in this situation a year ago. Like, I was like, man, I was just so locked into this relationship. So hopefully this helps you guys. If you've had a similar experience or even a different experience, post in the comments below what you're going through. If you have stopped smoking, let me know how long you haven't been smoking for. We're all in this together. We can all do this if we want to. And if you like this type of content, let me know what else you'd like to see. Like and subscribe if it helped you. Have a good one.